I boarded the 3 a.m. train with a shiver that wasn't just from the cold. The platform was a desolate stretch of cracked concrete, bathed in the weak, flickering glow of a single overhead bulb that buzzed like a trapped wasp. Shadows clawed at the ground, sharp and restless, shifting with every sputter of light. My boots scraped against the gritty surface, each step echoing in the empty station, a hollow sound swallowed by the night. My duffel bag hung heavy on my shoulder, stuffed with wrinkled clothes, a laptop, and a half-empty water bottle, remnants of a 16-hour workday that left my eyes burning and my hands trembling from too much coffee. I was a graphic designer, 28, stuck in a cycle of deadlines for clients who didn't care that I lived 5 hours from the city. Driving home wasn't an option, my vision blurred at the edges, and the road would have been a death trap. The train was a last-minute decision, a cheap ticket I'd snagged online, promising a few hours of sleep before I reached home. I thought I could close my eyes and forget the world. I was wrong. The station was dead. No ticket agents, no late-night stragglers, no signs of life beyond the hum of that dying bulb. The air was sharp, cutting through my jacket, carrying a faint metallic tang that made my nose wrinkle. I checked my phone, 2:58 a.m., no signal. Typical for a nowhere station like this, a forgotten stop between the city and my small hometown. The platform's edges faded into darkness, and beyond it, the world was just a void, no stars, no moon, just an oppressive black that felt like it was watching. I shifted my bag, the strap digging into my shoulder, and scanned the platform one last time. Nothing. Just me, alone, waiting for a train I wasn't even sure would come. When it did, it arrived with a low groan, a rusted beast crawling out of the night. The train was old, its paint chipped and faded, once maybe blue, now a sickly gray under the dim light. The windows were smeared with grime, reflecting the bulb's flicker in oily streaks. I hesitated, my breath fogging in the cold, then stepped toward the last car as the door hissed open. A wave of stale air hit me, thick with that metallic smell, now mixed with something sour, like sweat left to fester. I swallowed, my throat dry, and climbed aboard, the floor creaking under my boots. The door slid shut behind me with a heavy thud, sealing me in. Inside, the car was a relic, lit by a single overhead bulb that buzzed and flickered, casting a sickly yellow glow over rows of worn seats. The fabric was frayed, some cushions torn, exposing gray stuffing like innards spilling out. I counted maybe 30 seats, but only 3 other passengers shared the space. Across the aisle, an old man sat hunched, his coat swallowing his frail frame. His hands rested on his knees, gnarled and spotted, veins bulging under thin skin. His eyes, watery and gray, flicked toward me for a split second before dropping to the floor, avoiding contact. I nodded out of reflex, but he didn't respond, just sat there, still as a statue. Up front, near the door to the next car, a woman sat alone, her head bowed over her lap. A red scarf was knotted around her neck, bright against her dark coat, and her fingers worked at a tissue, tearing it into tiny shreds that fluttered to the floor like ash. She didn't look up, didn't acknowledge the world, just kept shredding that tissue, her movements mechanical, almost frantic. Further down, sprawled across 2 seats, was a guy in a gray hoodie, his head tilted against the window. Earbuds dangled from his ears, the cords tangled across his chest, and his breathing was slow, steady, like he was asleep or close to it. His face was hidden, shadowed by the hood, but he seemed young, maybe my age, oblivious to the creaking car and the flickering light. I picked a seat near the back, dropping my duffel to the floor with a dull thud. The cushion sagged under me, springs groaning, and I leaned back, the fabric scratchy against my neck. The air was colder in here than outside, a bone-deep chill that made me zip my jacket to my chin. That metallic smell lingered, sharp and unpleasant, coating my tongue like I'd licked a penny. I glanced at my phone again, 3:02 a.m., still no signal. The train lurched forward, the movement sudden, and the wheels began their steady clack against the tracks, a rhythm that should have been soothing but wasn't. It was too loud, too sharp, like the train was grinding something beneath it. My reflection stared back from the window, pale and hollow-eyed, my dark hair a mess from running my hands through it all day. The countryside blurred past, just vague shapes in the dark, trees, maybe, or fields, impossible to tell in the blackness. I tried to focus on the clack of the wheels, hoping it'd lull me to sleep, but my eyes kept drifting to the other passengers. The old man hadn't moved, his hands still on his knees, but his lips twitched now, a faint movement, like he was muttering something too low to hear. The woman in the red scarf kept tearing at her tissue, the pile of scraps growing on her lap, her fingers moving faster, more erratic. The hoodie guy was still, his earbuds glinting under the flickering light, his chest rising and falling in that same slow rhythm. No conductor came. No ticket check, no crackling announcement over a speaker, just the four of us in this rattling, dimly lit car. I shifted, the seat creaking, and pulled my bag closer, the weight of it grounding me. The bulb overhead buzzed louder, flickered twice, and dimmed, plunging the car into near darkness for a heartbeat. My pulse spiked, and I gripped the armrest, the plastic cold and slick under my fingers. The light came back, weaker now, casting long shadows that stretched across the aisle, pooling in the corners like spilled ink. The old man's head turned, just slightly. His eyes glinting in the dim glow. He wasn't looking at me, not directly, but the air felt heavier, like his glance had left something behind. I told myself it was nothing, just the late hour and my exhaustion playing tricks. I'd been up for nearly 20 hours, my brain foggy, my body aching. But the cold was sharper now, seeping through my jacket, and that smell, metal and something worse, like decay, was stronger, clinging to the back of my throat. I glanced at the woman in the red scarf. Her hands froze for a moment, the tissue falling to the floor in a crumpled heap, and I waited for her to look up, to acknowledge me or the train or anything. She didn't. The hoodie guy's earbuds had slipped out now, dangling against his chest, but he hadn't moved, his head still pressed against the window. The train hit a bump, the jolt sharp enough to make my teeth clack together. The lights flickered again, longer this time, and when they returned, the woman in the red scarf was gone. Her seat was empty, the pile of tissue scraps scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. My stomach twisted, a cold knot forming. I hadn't heard her move, hadn't seen her stand. The car was small, the door to the next car still closed, the platform exit locked. Where could she have gone? I scanned the rows, my heart pounding, but there was nothing, just empty seats, the old man, and the hoodie guy, still motionless. The old man's muttering started again, louder now, a low, guttural sound that didn't sound like words, didn't sound human. My skin prickled, and I gripped my bag tighter, my knuckles aching. The train slowed, brakes screeching, a high-pitched wail that cut through the night. I leaned toward the window, expecting a station, but there was only darkness outside, a concrete slab barely visible, no signs, no lights, just an endless black pressing against the glass. The doors didn't open. No one got on or off. The clack-clack-clack resumed, faster now, the train picking up speed, the rhythm pounding in my ears like a pulse. I stood, my legs unsteady, and scanned the car again. The old man's eyes were on me now, unblinking, his lips still moving, the sound like a chant, low and wrong. The hoodie guy's earbuds swung gently, but his head hadn't moved, his face still hidden. The empty seat where the woman had been seemed darker, like the shadows had thickened there. My breath came in short bursts, fogging the air. I sat back down, clutching my bag, and told myself it was fine, she'd gone to the bathroom, or the next car, or somewhere. But I hadn't heard the door. I hadn't heard anything. The bulb flickered again, and for a moment, I thought I saw something in the window, not my reflection, but something else, a shape in the glass, too vague to make out. When the light steadied, it was just me again, pale and wide-eyed, but the unease stayed, a cold weight in my chest. The train kept moving, the clack of the wheels louder, sharper, like it was trying to say something I didn't want to hear. I shouldn't have gotten on this train. I knew it, deep down, but it was too late now. The train's clack-clack-clack pounded in my ears, a relentless rhythm that should have lulled me to sleep but instead kept my nerves on edge. I sat rigid in the sagging seat, my duffel bag clutched against my chest like a shield, the cold of the car seeping through my jacket. The overhead bulb buzzed, its weak yellow light flickering just enough to make the shadows twitch in the corners. The woman in the red scarf was gone, her seat empty, the pile of shredded tissue scattered across the floor like ash from a fire that never was. I hadn't heard her move, hadn't seen her stand, and the door to the next car was still closed, its handle glinting faintly in the dim glow. My heart hadn't stopped racing since I noticed her absence, a tight knot in my chest that made every breath feel shallow. I glanced at the old man across the aisle. His head was still bowed, his gnarled hands resting on his knees, but his lips moved faster now, a steady stream of low muttering that grated against the train's rhythm. The sound was wrong, not quite words, more like a hum, guttural and uneven, like something caught in his throat. His watery gray eyes stayed fixed on the floor, but I swore they flickered toward me for a split second, a glance so quick it might have been my imagination. The guy in the gray hoodie hadn't moved, his head still slumped against the window, earbuds dangling loose now, swinging gently with the train's sway. His chest rose and fell, slow and steady, but something about his stillness felt unnatural, like he was too still, too quiet. I shifted, the seat creaking under me, and checked my phone again. 3:05 a.m., no signal. It had been only a few minutes since we left the station, but it felt longer, like time was stretching, the seconds dragging under the weight of the cold air. The metallic smell was stronger now, sharp and bitter, mixed with that sour undercurrent that made my stomach turn. I tried to focus on breathing, on calming the panic creeping up my spine, but the air felt thick, heavy, like it was pressing against my lungs. I told myself it was just exhaustion, 20 hours awake, too much coffee, too little food, but the car felt wrong, like it was watching, waiting. I leaned my head back, closing my eyes, hoping to force sleep, but the old man's muttering cut through the darkness behind my lids. It was louder now, insistent, the rhythm clashing with the wheels' clack, like two heartbeats out of sync. I opened my eyes, my pulse spiking, and stared at him. His lips moved in sharp, jerky motions, his teeth barely visible, stained and uneven. The words, if they were words, were unintelligible, a low drone that sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted to ask him to stop, to say something, anything, but my throat was dry, my voice stuck. His head tilted slightly, not toward me, but enough to make the shadows shift across his face, deepening the hollows under his eyes. The train hit another bump, the jolt sharp enough to make my teeth clack. The lights flickered, plunging the car into darkness for a heartbeat, then snapped back, dimmer than before. My hands tightened on my bag, the canvas rough against my palms. I glanced at the empty seat where the woman had been. The tissue scraps were still there, some caught in the folds of the cushion, others scattered across the floor, glinting faintly in the light. I stood, my legs unsteady, and took a step toward her seat, my boots scuffing against the gritty floor. I don't know what I expected to find, a clue, a sign, something to explain where she'd gone, but there was nothing. Just the seat, sagging and worn, and the scraps, small and fragile, like pieces of a puzzle I couldn't solve. I turned back, my heart pounding, and caught the old man's eyes on me. They weren't watery anymore, they were sharp, too sharp, glinting like glass in the dim light. He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared, his muttering unbroken, a low chant that seemed to vibrate in the air. I stumbled back to my seat, my breath coming in short bursts, and sat down hard, the cushion groaning. The hoodie guy was still there, still slumped, but one of his earbuds had fallen to the floor now, lying in a tangle of cord. I stared at it, my mind racing. Had it been there before? Had he moved? I couldn't tell, and the uncertainty made my skin crawl. The train slowed suddenly, the brakes screeching, a high-pitched wail that cut through the car like a scream. I braced myself, gripping the armrest, my nails digging into the cracked plastic. The windows showed nothing but black, but as the train crawled to a stop, a faint outline appeared, a slab of concrete, barely visible, no signs, no lights, just a platform swallowed by darkness. The doors didn't open. No one got on or off. The air grew colder, the metallic smell sharper, and the old man's muttering grew louder, more insistent, filling the car like a pulse. I pressed my face to the window, my breath fogging the glass, and squinted into the dark. The platform was empty, but something moved in the shadows, a flicker of motion too quick to catch, like a figure darting just out of sight. The train jolted forward, the clack-clack-clack resuming, faster now, the rhythm frantic, like the train was running from something. The lights flickered again, and for a moment, I thought I saw the woman's red scarf in the aisle, a flash of color against the gray floor, but when the light steadied, it was gone. My heart hammered, my hands shaking as I clutched my bag. The old man's chant was everywhere now, not just in my ears but in my chest, vibrating through my bones. I wanted to scream, to tell him to stop, but my voice wouldn't come. The hoodie guy's head shifted slightly, just enough to make me jump, but his eyes stayed closed, his face hidden. I stood again, my legs trembling, and moved toward the door to the next car. I needed to move, to do something, anything to shake the dread crawling under my skin. The handle was cold, almost painfully so, and I hesitated, my hand hovering over it. The muttering followed me, louder, sharper, like it was coming from the walls now, not just the old man. I glanced back, he was still in his seat, head bowed, but his eyes were on me again, unblinking, his lips curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. The train lurched, and I grabbed the handle, my fingers numb, and pushed. The door didn't budge. I pushed harder, my shoulder aching, but it was stuck, like something was holding it closed. The lights flickered, and the muttering stopped, sudden and sharp, leaving only the clack of the wheels, now so fast it felt like the train was screaming. I turned back, my breath ragged, and saw the old man standing now, his coat hanging loose, his eyes black in the dim light, not gray, not watery, just empty. He didn't move, didn't speak, but the air was thick with his presence, heavy and wrong. I stumbled back to my seat, my bag falling to the floor, and sat, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. The train was speeding up, the windows rattling, the clack-clack-clack a deafening roar. The hoodie guy was gone now, his seat empty, his earbuds lying on the floor like they'd been dropped. I hadn't heard him move either. The car was just me and the old man now, his muttering gone, his eyes locked on me. The lights flickered one last time, and when they came back, he was closer, standing in the aisle, his shadow stretching across the floor, reaching for my feet. The old man's shadow stretched across the aisle, long and thin, like fingers reaching for my feet. His eyes, black and unblinking, bored into me from where he stood, too close, his coat hanging off his frail frame like a shroud. The train's clack-clack-clack roared in my ears, a frantic pulse that matched the hammering in my chest. The lights flickered, casting his face in jagged bursts of light and dark, each flash making his eyes seem deeper, emptier, like holes I could fall into. My hands shook as I gripped my duffel bag, the canvas slick with sweat despite the bone-deep cold of the car. The hoodie guy's seat was empty now, his earbuds lying tangled on the floor, abandoned. I hadn't heard him move, just like I hadn't heard the woman in the red scarf vanish. The air was thick, heavy with that metallic smell, now so sharp it stung my throat, mixed with something worse, something wet, like blood. I couldn't stay here, not with him watching, not with the silence where his muttering had been, a silence louder than the train's scream. My legs moved before my brain caught up, stumbling toward the door to the next car, my boots slipping on the gritty floor. The handle was ice cold, burning my palm as I grabbed it, and it didn't budge. I pushed harder, my shoulder aching, my breath coming in ragged gasps that fogged the air. The old man hadn't moved, but I felt him behind me, his presence pressing against my back like a weight. The lights flickered again, and for a split second, I thought I saw his shadow shift, not matching his body, stretching too far, too thin, across the ceiling. I shoved the door with everything I had, my teeth gritted, and it gave way with a screech, swinging open to a blast of frigid air that hit me like a slap. The next car was dark, completely dark, a black so thick it felt alive, swallowing the weak light from my car. The smell hit me harder here, metallic and wet, so strong I gagged, my hand flying to my mouth. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers clumsy, and switched on the flashlight app. The beam was pitiful, a thin white thread cutting through the gloom, barely illuminating the floor in front of me. I stepped forward, my boots echoing in the new car, the sound sharp and wrong in the stillness. The door slammed shut behind me, the thud final, like a coffin lid. My flashlight swept across the car, revealing rows of seats, empty and sagging, their fabric torn worse than in the last car, some cushions ripped open, stuffing spilling out like guts. The air was colder here, so cold my breath caught in my chest, each inhale sharp and painful. The floor was slick under my boots, not just gritty but wet, glistening in the flashlight's beam. I aimed the light down, my hand shaking, and saw it, a trail of something dark and shiny, streaking across the floor, leading deeper into the car. My stomach twisted, but I couldn't stop myself. I followed it, step by step, the clack of the train fading to a dull throb, like it was coming from underwater. The trail led to a seat near the middle of the car, and my flashlight caught a flash of red. I froze, my breath hitching. It was her, the woman in the red scarf. She was slumped in the seat, her head tilted back at an unnatural angle, her mouth open, lips pale and slack. Her scarf was soaked, not bright anymore but dark, heavy, clinging to her neck like it was part of her skin. The flashlight trembled in my hand, the beam jittering across her face. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, staring at the ceiling, but they weren't right, cloudy, empty, like glass marbles. The tissue she'd been shredding was gone, but her hands rested in her lap, fingers curled, nails dark with something that wasn't dirt. I stumbled back, my boot slipping on the wet floor, and my phone fell, clattering across the aisle. The flashlight spun, throwing wild shadows across the walls, and for a moment, I thought I saw something move in the dark, a shape too quick to catch. My heart pounded so hard it hurt, my vision blurring as I scrambled to grab the phone, my fingers brushing something cold and sticky on the floor. I yanked my hand back, gagging, and wiped it on my jeans, the fabric smearing dark. The phone's light steadied, and I pointed it at the woman again, half expecting her to be gone, but she was still there, unmoving, her scarf dripping now, a slow, steady patter onto the floor. A sound broke the silence, a low, wet gurgle, like water trapped in a pipe. It came from behind me, from the dark at the far end of the car. I spun, the flashlight beam shaking, but there was nothing, just empty seats and shadows that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking. The gurgle came again, closer, and my skin crawled, every nerve screaming to run. I backed toward the door I'd come through, my eyes locked on the darkness, the beam catching glints of wet streaks on the floor, more than before, like the car was bleeding. The train lurched, the clack 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 speeding up, the walls rattling as if the whole car was shaking itself apart. The lights in my car flickered through the door's window, and I saw him, the old man, standing in the aisle where I'd left him, his head tilted, his eyes blacker than the dark around me. He wasn't muttering now, just staring, his mouth curled into that not-quite smile. The gurgle came again, louder, and I swore it was coming from him, from his throat, but he was too far away, still in the other car. I turned and ran, my boots slipping, my bag banging against my hip. The door was heavier now, resisting as I yanked it open, the cold handle biting my skin. I stumbled back into the first car, the door slamming shut behind me, and collapsed into my seat, my chest heaving. The lights flickered, weaker now, and the old man was gone, his seat empty. The hoodie guy's earbuds were still on the floor, but his bag was gone too, like he'd never been there. The train screamed, the clack 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 a deafening roar, and the smell followed me, metallic and wet, filling the car like a fog. The door slammed shut behind me, sealing the darkness of the next car away, but the smell clung to my clothes, metallic and wet, like I'd been dipped in blood. My chest heaved, lungs burning from the cold air I'd sucked in, and I collapsed into my seat, the cushion groaning under my weight. The first car's overhead bulb buzzed weakly, its yellow light flickering in erratic pulses, casting shadows that danced across the empty seats. The old man was gone, his seat vacant, no coat, no hunched figure, just the faint imprint of where he'd sat, like the fabric remembered him. The hoodie guy's earbuds lay tangled on the floor, cords twisted like veins, but his bag, his presence, everything was erased. The train roared on, the clack-clack-clack, a thunderous beat that shook the walls, the windows rattling in their frames as if trying to escape. I stared at my hands, trembling in my lap, and saw smears of dark on my fingers, the sticky residue from the floor in the other car. I wiped them frantically on my jeans, the fabric staining black, but the feel of it lingered, cold and slick, like it had seeped into my skin. My phone was gone, lost in the dark when I'd dropped it, its flashlight beam spinning away like a dying star. The gurgle echoed in my mind, that wet, throaty sound from the blackness, closer each time, and I pressed my back against the seat, my heart pounding so hard my vision pulsed. The woman's face flashed before me, mouth open, eyes cloudy, scarf soaked and dripping. Dead. She had to be dead. But how? When? I hadn't heard a scream, a struggle, nothing. A noise cut through the train's roar, a low scrape, like nails on metal, coming from the door I'd just come through. I froze, my breath catching, and stared at it. The handle didn't move, but the scrape came again, slower, deliberate, dragging along the frame. The lights flickered, plunging the car into darkness for a second, and when they returned, the old man was there. Not in his seat, but standing in the aisle, closer than before, his coat hanging loose, his face lit by the dim glow. His eyes weren't gray anymore, they were black, bottomless pits that swallowed the light, and his mouth twisted into a smile, teeth stained yellow and sharp, too sharp, like shards of bone. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered, his voice not from his throat but from everywhere, vibrating through the floor, the seats, my bones. It was raspy, wet, like the gurgle I'd heard, and his lips didn't move right, lagging behind the words. I scrambled back, my bag falling to the floor with a thud, and pressed against the window, the glass cold against my shoulder. The scrape at the door stopped, but the old man took a step forward, his boots silent on the floor, no sound despite the grit. His shadow stretched behind him, too long, twisting up the wall like smoke. I bolted up, my legs shaky, and lunged for the emergency exit at the end of the car. The handle was red, marked with faded letters, and I yanked it, my muscles straining, but it wouldn't budge, locked or jammed, the metal unyielding. "Help!" I screamed, my voice cracking, echoing in the empty car, but the train didn't slow, didn't respond. The old man tilted his head, his smile widening, and whispered again, "No one leaves." The words slithered into my ears, cold and sticky, and the lights flickered out completely, plunging everything into black. Panic surged, and I swung my fist at where he'd been, hitting nothing but air, the motion carrying me forward. I fell to my knees, the floor hard and gritty, and crawled, my hands searching for the seats, the walls, anything. The gurgle was back, right behind me, wet and bubbling, and I felt it, breath on my neck, hot and foul, smelling of rot. I swung again, my elbow connecting with something soft, a grunt escaping, but when the lights flickered on sporadically, he was gone again, the aisle empty. My elbow throbbed, and I scrambled to the emergency door, pounding it with my fists, the metal bruising my knuckles, blood smearing the handle as I kicked and pulled. The train sped faster, the clack-clack-clack a blur, the windows showing nothing but black, no stars, no landscape, just void. The voice came again, not a whisper now but a chorus, echoing from the walls, "No one leaves." I spun, my back to the door, and saw shapes in the seats, shadows that weren't shadows, figures sitting where the woman and hoodie guy had been, but wrong, their heads tilted too far, limbs twisted. The old man stood at the front, his arms outstretched, fingers bony and long, beckoning. I kicked the door harder, my boot heel cracking against it, pain shooting up my leg, but it held, unyielding. Blood ran down my hands, warm and sticky, mixing with the cold sweat on my skin. The gurgle was everywhere now, bubbling from the vents, the floor, my own throat. I slid down the door, my strength gone, and curled into a ball, my bag forgotten, my mind fracturing. The lights strobed, each flash showing the old man closer, his face inches from mine, his breath on my skin, his eyes swallowing me whole. I swung blindly, my fist hitting the seat, the pain sharp but distant, and screamed until my voice gave out. The train screamed with me, metal grinding, sparks flying from the wheels. I could hear them, feel the vibration. The emergency handle glowed red in the flickering light, mocking me, and I grabbed it again, pulling with everything left, my muscles tearing, veins bulging. It gave a fraction, a click, but then the lights died again, and fingers, cold, bony, real, brushed my neck, tracing my pulse. I thrashed, elbowing back, connecting with ribs that cracked like dry wood, but the grip tightened, pulling me into the dark. The cold, bony fingers tightened on my neck, their grip like ice sinking into my skin, cutting off my air. I thrashed, my elbow swinging wildly, connecting with something that gave a sickening crack, like splintering wood, but the hold didn't loosen. The train's clack 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 roared in my ears, a deafening scream of metal on metal, the car shaking so violently I felt it in my bones. The lights were gone, swallowed by a darkness so thick it pressed against my eyes, my lungs, my mind. I clawed at the fingers, my nails scraping rough, leathery flesh, but they didn't budge, didn't bleed, just squeezed harder, pulling me down into the void. My scream died in my throat, choked off, and my legs gave out, my body hitting the floor with a thud that echoed in the black. I crawled, blind, my hands scraping the gritty floor, shards of something sharp, glass, maybe, biting into my palms. Blood ran warm down my wrists, mixing with the cold sweat soaking my shirt. The gurgle was back, wet and bubbling, not from one place but everywhere, seeping from the walls, the seats, the air itself. No one leaves. The voice hissed, not the old man's now but a chorus, layered and wrong, vibrating through the car like a tuning fork struck too hard. My bag was gone, lost in the dark, and my phone was long gone, leaving me with nothing but my pounding heart and the weight of the unseen. I swung again, my fist hitting empty air, the motion throwing me off balance. I fell forward, my shoulder slamming into a seat, the torn fabric catching my jacket. The train lurched, tilting sharply, and I slid across the floor, my hands grasping for anything solid. The gurgle grew louder, closer, like it was inside my skull, and the fingers brushed my neck again, lighter this time, teasing, tracing my pulse. I screamed, a raw, broken sound, and kicked out, my boot hitting something soft that didn't yield. The darkness pulsed, alive, and I felt it watching, not just the old man but the train itself, its walls closing in, its rhythm mocking me. Then, silence. The clack 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 stopped, the gurgle cut off, the fingers vanished. The lights flickered on, weak and yellow, the bulb buzzing like a dying insect. I was alone. The car was empty, no old man, no hoodie guy, no woman in the red scarf. Just me, sprawled on the floor, blood dripping from my hands, my chest heaving. The seats were still, their torn fabric unchanged, but the air was heavier, thicker, like it had thickened in the dark. The earbuds were gone, the tissue scraps gone, the old man's coat gone. My bag sat in the corner, untouched, like it had never fallen. I crawled to it, my muscles aching, and pulled it close, the canvas warm against my skin, a lifeline I didn't trust. The train was moving again, slower now, the clack of the wheels a dull, steady pulse. I stumbled to my seat, my legs shaking, and checked my phone, or would have, if I hadn't lost it. My wristwatch, scratched and old, read 3 a.m. I blinked, my vision blurry, and checked again. 3 a.m. It had been hours, hours of running, screaming, bleeding. It should have been morning, or close to it, but the watch didn't lie, its second hand ticking in slow, deliberate circles. I pressed my face to the window, the glass cold against my cheek, and saw nothing but black outside, no stars, no horizon, just an endless void that swallowed the world. My reflection stared back, pale and hollow, my eyes bloodshot, my hair matted with sweat. But it wasn't right. The reflection moved when I didn't, its head tilting slightly, its lips curling into a smile I hadn't made. The eyes weren't mine, too dark, too empty, like the old man's, like holes punched through my face. I jerked back, my heart lurching, and the reflection stayed, smiling wider, its teeth glinting in the dim light. I raised my hand, and it didn't, just watched, its gaze locking onto mine, pulling me in. I shut my eyes, my breath ragged, and counted to 10, willing it to be gone. When I opened them, the reflection was normal, my face, my eyes, my fear, but the unease lingered, a cold weight in my gut. The car was silent now, save for the wheel's steady clack, but the silence was worse, heavy with absence. I sat, clutching my bag, my bloodied hands leaving smears on the canvas. The air was still cold, still thick with that metallic smell, but fainter now, like it had settled into the walls. I waited, every muscle tense, for the gurgle, the fingers, the voice, but nothing came. Just the train, moving through the dark, and me, alone with my reflection. I checked my watch again, 3 a.m., the second hand frozen, then ticking backward, just once, before starting again. The windows rattled, a low hum building in the car, not from the wheels but from something deeper, something inside. I stood, my legs weak, and moved to the emergency exit, my hands trembling as I gripped the handle. It was warm now, unnaturally so, and it turned easily, but the door didn't open. I pounded it, my fists aching, but the metal didn't give, didn't even dent. The hum grew louder, vibrating in my chest, and the lights flickered, slower now, each flash showing the seats empty, then not, shadows sitting where the passengers had been, their forms flickering like static, their faces blank. I backed away, my boots slipping, and fell into my seat, the cushion sagging under me. The reflection was back, smiling again, its eyes blacker now, its mouth too wide. "No one leaves," it whispered, not from the glass but from inside my head, the voice soft, intimate, like it knew me. The train didn't stop, didn't slow, just rolled on, the clack 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 a lullaby now, pulling me under. I closed my eyes, my body heavy, and felt the fingers again, not on my neck but in my mind, cold and endless. The train hasn't stopped. I don't think it ever will.